There was a guy who slid down on a pole to twerk on the devil. You know, Lil Nas X had
that booty popping.
Had the Christians going crazy with them shoes.
I am, it's been such a thing to watch the reaction to Lil Nas X because, like some people have already pointed out, there is so much actual evil going on in the world. Right? Like at the hands of the state, the system. Right. And people aren't at all bothered by that. But one little black boy who identifies as homosexual.
Right.
Slides down a pole, twerks on the devil, pops the devil's neck, as we were saying in Beijing, poppy neck. And then puts the horns on, and everybody is disturbed. And
I'm always interested in the things that move culture, right? Ryan talks about this a lot. He talks about how with Trump, the kids in cages at the border, the overpacked.
They're still in the cages, by the way.
The overpacked thing under the Trump administration was this huge story. And now, I'm not saying it's not a story. I saw NBC covering it, but it is less centered in the news. It's not as focused. It's still happening. It's still an issue, but for some reason, that's no longer the main focus. I say that to say this. People all the time say they care about the kids. Like everything is about the kids. Cardi and Meg don't dance like that because the kids are watching. Lil Nas X, the kids love you. But when the stuff that actually is hurting, if you got these kids out tomorrow, if all of them were out tomorrow, they are all traumatized from this experience. Their lives will never be the same based on this experience.
Right. Yeah.
Now the people, let's make it less dramatic than that, right? This is a conversation I was having with my.
How can you make it less dramatic when you had all those fabulous?
Well, we're gonna get into the costumes and everything, but I'm talking about people get upset with Lil Nas X. They say he has a responsibility to his fans, and that's parents' job, right? So when I say that to people, they're like, "Yes, but what about the parents that aren't there? What about the parents that they have to work in there?" Now this is another why aren't you more upset about that?
Ryan is triggered because the last conversation we had about Sesame Street, I know that he was
I don't think actually I think you would agree with this. It is parents' job to raise a kid, and people should be more upset with parents not being able to. Why aren't they paid a wage?
Right. So they don't have to work three jobs.
They don't have to work three jobs
to support themselves.
Right. Why aren't they able to schedule their lives so that they can take care of their kids or why do parents have to rely on, entertainment to raise their kids? Like, yes, this happens. I know that this is a thing that happens, but shouldn't you be more upset about that than what the entertainers are doing? Like, this is my point. Like, if you want to talk about the kids, if you want to be for the kids, then be for the kids.
But it's the same thing as Republicans are pro-life.
Right. They say they're pro-life, but they don't care if you buy all the guns. They don't care about no mass shootings. There's a mass shooting every week.
Happening at school.
It's very specific. Right. They just don't want you to have abortions. That does not mean pro-life. Right. And this is the thing. These people aren't for the kids. They're not worried about Lil Nas X fan base. They're upset because he's gay. They're upset because he identifies as gay. The imagery was gay and black.
Because people have pointed out that there have been white rock groups and even other artists. Apparently Billie Eilish had is that how you say her name?
Yes, Billie Eilish. But
had a whole video with
we grew up on South Park. If you remember South Park, Saddam Hussein was sleeping with the devil. There's been you stop acting like no one's ever made art.
Right.
All your depictions of the devil came from artwork. Like the idea you have in your head. If I say Lucifer, whatever you think in your head, you've seen that somewhere.
Right.
Like someone made that up. It's just art.
Christianity made that up.
Yes, but I'm saying even the image of it. So stop saying that you can't make art around this idea. You can't make imagery around this idea. It's just imagery.
I loved it though, because if you really look at the symbolism of it, and I'm not someone that is very deep. I would say I'm surface level in the occult a little bit. Like there are people that I know or follow on Instagram and stuff like that, who really delve into symbolism. And but if you just look at it from the context of, okay, Lil Nas X is a gay black man, pretty young. He comes from Gen Z.
Right.
They've been raised on the internet. And if you're gay and black, a lot of the narrative around your identity as that has been about sin, has been about going to hell, has been about not being accepted, just being marginalized as gay because you're black, and then in the black community because you're gay.
Right.
So if he's basically turning the narrative on his head, so this is what you want me to be,
This is what
I'll be that.
Right.
I'm taking back the narrative. So here I am. I am the devil that you're making me out to be.
Right. That's the whole purpose of the video.
Right.
That's what y'all said. Y'all wanted me to do. And this is what he said this. Like, he's been trolling crazy. He's been on TikTok saying it. He's been on Twitter saying it. I think it is brilliant marketing, you know, because at the end of the day, it's all marketing. He's an artist.
Everybody's talking about it everywhere.
Talking about it. So let's get it. Like, if you haven't seen the video, it you know, there's a lot of biblical imagery in there. About, you know,
there's a kiss in the Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden, and
there's Lucifer's fall. There's
the fall of the angel, and the casting of the first stone.
Before he was, anyhow, there's his fall into hell.
Right.
And
yeah, I think it was a creative video. I mean, it's, you know, I'm not the target demographic. I think it was well done. It was interesting. You know, he got the people going, you know.
And you know, even if you aren't gay and you look at it as a black person, you should still be able to identify with, okay, this is a persecution that I am facing at the hands of society or whatever, and all this stuff.
Especially black men, especially. We don't identify with gayness for, you know, socially, right? Like, there is a stigma for, like, you almost can't even stand up for gay black people as a black man, because they're like, well, what are you, gay?
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous. You know, I don't understand it. You know, your sexual preference does not determine your worth. You should be able to love whoever you want to love. You should be able to, you know, that, and to condemn people because of that, it's something. So the thing with black gay men specifically, they're getting it from all angles.
But also, Christians love to be selective about their condemnation as well.
Right.
Because this is why I talked, I think it was the first episode, about this full conservatism that exists in Caribbean society, because we're so heavily religious. But when it comes to Christianity, there are things that Christians are willing to turn a blind eye to until the gays come out. Okay? Right. And there's very few things trigger vitriol and trigger protest. I mean, even in Barbados, the thing that will bring Christians to march in the street is LGBT issues and LGBT rights.
Right.
Right? So it's like, this selective outrage, when you should be outraged about the abuse that is going on in the church. You should be outraged about the infidelity that goes on in the church. Pastors and church leaders having families with their congregation
I feel
members. You should be outraged about poverty in your community. You should be outraged that people are going hungry and there's so much food waste. You should be outraged that there's homeless people and so many empty houses, living spaces.
I don't like to bash religions because they have potential. A lot of people need them. But at the same time, they're so dangerous because they lead people to not. They lead to groupthink. It's the original groupthink, where you start to let go of all reason and just believe anything, and that is dangerous. When it comes specifically to Christianity, there's so much hypocrisy as Black people and you can believe Christianity. You can, if that's what helps you, then great. I grew up Christian. All my family is Christian. I don't have any beef with them. But at the same time, I don't understand why everything else is so negative, right? Like, so I put out a series called Voodoo Man. When I said that, everyone's like, yo, what are you doing? You believe in the devil? And it's like, you have no idea of your history. You have no idea of the history of religion of the world.
Called voodoo. They said they were trying to get informed about the enemy today, and I was like, the enemy?
Yeah, it's like,
voodoo?
how is that the enemy? That just shows the lack of historical reference. And the reason I called it Voodoo Man was just because of that point. Because most American Black people were taken from the Western coast.
Yes.
And the
Also in
dominant
speaking Caribbean, yes.
The dominant religion of that place was Vodun. So voodoo was our original religion for the most part. Like, did Christianity exist in Africa? Yes, it did. So did Islam. They existed in the continent. The continent is huge. That was not the dominant religion of where most slaves were taken from. But just like, Vodun, it was transformed. In Haiti, it became something else. In New Orleans, it became something
voodoo,
else.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It became like there's different types of voodoo, and it also became demonized in Western cultures.
Yes.
If you go into the history of Haiti, it was the voodoo spirituality that they hid within because you're only allowed to practice Christianity under slavery,
right.
Which is
so
another aspect
in
of
Haiti
it.
and a lot of other, and Cuba and places like that, a
Right.
lot of you're talking about Santeria
Right,
and other
Santeria.
things. A lot of it is syncretized with Catholicism.
Right.
Right. So your saints. And
the reason that they did that, right, was because that was the only thing that they were really
Yes.
allowed to practice, because the other stuff was scary to white people. White people
they
didn't
had to hide it.
They were
They had to
scared of it. They
conceal
didn't
it.
want you to do it. And so they started hiding it within the Christianity. And as in Haiti specifically, as they became bolder and they started practicing their own original practices, they revolted. And that scared the colonizing culture so much that they started writing books about the Black nation and the heinous acts that is voodoo. And now Black people in America are afraid of voodoo.
I think because in the past few years, there's been like a number of articles and stuff like that talking about specifically like Black women getting back to African traditional religions and practicing and stuff like that. And so I think there is like this interest that is being regenerated in our original.
Part of that is the internet, right? Like the internet gives you access to information that we never had before.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me, right? That like when I think about in Africa, they practice Vodun. Like it was not written down. There's no written text. It was oral tradition, and these traditions were passed down. And even through slavery, though it was changed, it still survived in a lot of ways. Like that to me is the same story of Black people, right? Like
everywhere.
Like I'm much lighter skinned, and I have curly hair, and that is the story of my ancestors surviving. Mm-hmm. Like I'm changed, but I'm still from that place. And I connect with that ideology so much. So it makes me so angry when I hear people talking about voodoo as the enemy. And or saying that it is demonic or somehow evil. It's just your lack of understanding. And just because you don't understand something doesn't make it evil.
Right.
Skyns. Don't you wanna feel